Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today we are talking about the two governor's races up in November of 2025, this being the states of Virginia and New Jersey, and we're giving our updated prediction for the month of September in these two respective races. Now, if this is your first time watching a video about the Virginia and New Jersey governor's races, now it's actually a pretty good time, as usually right after Labor Day is when a lot of these close governor's races in the off-year presidential elections, meaning the year after the presidential year, often that's when the media attention starts to pick up on these races. So now is a good time to start looking at these races and how they are currently going. So going to start first with the state of Virginia. Virginia right now is a two-way contest between Democrat Abigail Spanberger and Republican Winsome Sears. Now, in case you're unfamiliar with the two candidates, Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, is a former U.S. representative from Virginia's 7th Congressional District, which is in the northeastern part of Virginia in the Richmond area. And on the Republican side, the Lieutenant Governor of the state of Virginia, Winsome Earl Sears, she is the officially Republican nominee facing off in the general election. Now, this race is open due to the fact that Virginia's constitution does not allow for a governor to serve two consecutive back-to-back terms. A governor can run again 4 years later, but they cannot serve back-to-back terms. So the governor, Glenn Youngkin, is unable to seek a second consecutive term in office, which makes it an open race. Now for the general election, right now the early predictions for this race, Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, and Sourdo's Crystal Ball have this race listed as lean for the Democrats, while Race to the White House has it as likely Democratic, and State Navigate, which was originally rendered as CN Analysis, has it as solid Democratic. The early polling data thus far in this race shows Abigail Spanberger with a pretty large lead in this race. Real Clear Politics' polling average has Spanberger leading by 6.8%. Decision Desk HQ, Spanberger is leading with 7.9%. Race to the White House, the average has Spanberger up 7.9%, with the average of these three being 7.6% lead for Abigail Spanberger. Now, this is certainly very significant, as this race is currently held, or the seat is currently held by the Republican Governor Glenn Youngkin, so Spanberger leading would be a Democratic flip. And it's looked like for the past few months now, obviously polls aren't always everything, but they are a very useful tool to give us a little bit of an idea in the race, and it's been very clear. We have not seen one poll where Winsome Sears has led over Abigail Spanberger at this current point in the campaign. And it's been pretty consistent here. Abigail Spanberger has been polling usually around the mid to high 40% or so, 46, 49, 48, 47% or so, where Winsome Sears, for the most part, has been polling in either the mid 30% or even into the low 40s now. Some of the best numbers she has put up in these polls happened just recently in the coefficient poll that has her at 43%. Roanoke College has her at 39%. This is some of the highest we've seen Winsome Sears get so far. Now, something that's very important in these races are looking at the historical precedent, because Virginia, like New Jersey, since they take place in the first year after the presidential election year, usually these elections end up being a repudiation of the current president and the president's party that's in charge of the White House. So what that means is essentially the party that's in the White House usually does not win their respective governor's race in the state of Virginia. So we can look at some recent election results. We can look at 2021, where Joe Biden, the Democrat, was president. Glenn Youngkin, the Republican, narrowly won by 1.9%. 2017, the Democrat Ralph Northam was running in the same year when President Trump, first term, was the Republican president. He defeated Ed Gillespie by 8.9% in that race. 2013 did end up being an exception, where Democrat Terry McAuliffe defeated Republican Ken Cuccinelli by 2.5%, though it should be worth noting a third-party candidate did get 6.52% of the vote. So that very well could have been a very special situation there. 2009, when Obama was first elected president, Republican Bob McDonnell won this race by 17.4%. Now going back to 2005, President Bush at the time just got reelected, and then Democratic Governor Democrat Tim Kaine won the governor's race. And just one more to prove it here, 2001, Bush just won the 2000 election, Mark Warner elected Democrat. Virginia has this track record going back a long ways, and it's pretty reasonable why. It is a pretty consistent trend. So that election basis alone suggests that Abigail Spanberger should be in for a very good night. And the early polling data thus far certainly seems that Spanberger is on her way to becoming the next governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. And it's not just that, but look at the polling numbers right now, where Spanberger's up around 48% in the Real Clear Politics average, Sears is at 41.4%, but still 10.4% is undecided. So there is certainly, at this current point in time, enough undecided vote or other vote in this race to make up the margin for Winsome Sears, but to do so, Sears would have to win almost every single undecided vote that is left out there. And then she would be essentially matching what Glenn Youngkin got in 2021, where he defeated Terry McAuliffe about 50 to 48. And based on the current election environment that 2025 is projecting to be, based on the historical precedent of these midterm or of these off-year elections, that's really not something that's likely to happen. We can actually look at the 2021 election results in Virginia and just give you a quick look here. Glenn Youngkin got 50.6%, Terry McAuliffe got 48.6%. Now, there are a lot of counties in Virginia. All of them have differing degrees of total votes in the counties, but these are some very important areas of note that I'm going to mention. Pretty much every article or video you watch about Virginia politics is going to talk about the northern Washington, D.C. suburbs, or the northern Virginia suburbs. These three counties, Fairfax, Prince William, and Loudoun, are three of the largest counties in the state of Virginia by population, and they almost always swing the election towards the Democrats, depending on the margin in these areas. These are some of the fastest growing areas in the state right outside of Washington, D.C., and they are the reason that Virginia went from being a very solid Republican state in the early 2000s to being a toss-up state in the early 2010s to being a pretty reliable Democratic state in the 2016-2020s since then on. And it's because these three counties have grown so much in population. But when you see these numbers from the 2021 race, Glenn Youngkin lost Loudoun County to Terry McAuliffe by 11 points. Now you may be wondering, okay, well, isn't 11 points very good? Well, hold on to that just 1 second. You also see Prince William about a 15-point win. Fairfax ended up being about a 30-point win. Now let's take a look at the 2017 governor's race, where Democrat Ralph Northam defeated the Republican candidate Ed Gillespie by about 8.9% overall in the state. Loudoun County, remember, it was 11 points in the Youngkin race. This one, Northam won it by 20. We can see Prince William, this one was a 22-point win for Northam over Gillespie. And in Fairfax, it was a 36-point win. So not only did Youngkin lose all the same counties that Gillespie did, but Youngkin made up about 6 or 7% respectively in each of these three D.C. suburban counties. And when Youngkin did that, it made this election very much in play in 2021. Because based on how Youngkin did throughout the rest of the Commonwealth of Virginia, essentially, Youngkin was able to tie, if not do slightly better than McAuliffe in the rest of the state, but these three counties made the difference. So by cutting into these margins that Gillespie and Northam got in 2017, combined with the areas that Youngkin improved on throughout the Commonwealth of Virginia, ended up essentially being Youngkin winning by about 2% statewide once everything was factored in from the D.C. suburbs and the rest of the Commonwealth. So the margins in these three areas, Loudoun, Fairfax, and Prince William, are going to be very crucial to watch for on election night. If we see these results for Abigail Spanberger matching what Terry McAuliffe got in 2021, this could be a very bad night for Spanberger and the Democrats. On the flip side, if we're seeing the results come in early on and we're seeing Abigail Spanberger getting the margins that Ralph Northam got in 2017, where she's winning Loudoun by about 20 points or so, or Prince William by 22, and that's likely indicating she's matching the 2017 numbers and is in for a very good and very early night as well. Don't forget, this race got called by about 9:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in Virginia when the polls closed at 7 p.m. on the East Coast. So Virginia, we're going to find out the election results actually relatively pretty quick on election night in November. So that's a very key area I'm watching is the northern D.C. suburbs. The last area I just want to show you is a very key suburban area in Virginia, and that is Virginia Beach and Chesapeake County right next to it. This is an area that voted for Glenn Youngkin in 2021 by about 8 points and voted in Chesapeake for Glenn Youngkin by about 6 points. This area is very big because when a Republican is winning the Commonwealth of Virginia, it's more likely than not they're winning these two counties. In 2017, when Ed Gillespie lost, he lost Virginia Beach by about 5 points, and he lost Chesapeake by about 8 points. So if the D.C. suburbs are not in yet, and you're looking for an indication of, okay, well, how well is the Republican or the Democrat doing? If Virginia Beach and Chesapeake counties are in and these areas are going Democratic, that could be a good sign for the Democrats and the Commonwealth of Virginia as well, or vice versa. If the Republicans are winning them, maybe the Republicans are in for a better night. So that's an important area to watch for as well. So Based on the 2017 numbers, again, 2021 was a GOP win by 1.9. 2017 ended up being about an 8.9% win for Northam versus Gillespie. This race is very interesting because Abigail Spanberger and Winsome Sears, at this current point in time, the race was tracking to be a very big blowout win for Spanberger versus Sears, possibly even breaking over that 10% number. And when you look at the polling data from 2017 and how it kind of developed into the Virginia governor's race, things actually ended up being relatively close once the final few days of the campaign happened. Northam only defeated Gillespie in the final polling average by about 3.3%. At this current point in time, which is about the end of August, beginning of Virginia, the only poll around this time showed about a 5-point lead for Northam over Gillespie, about 44 to 39% in this University of Mary Washington poll. Mason-Dixon in the second week of September showed about a 1-point race. So this race from 2017 looked like it was being a lot more competitive, where Ed Gillespie early on actually started out leading in a lot of the early polls. Yes, there was still a huge amount of undecided vote, but Gillespie started out in the early lead. And then as the general election got closer, President Trump's national approval rating started to play a significant role in this campaign, and Ed Gillespie really never had a chance after that happened, and the Democrat went on to win by a pretty large margin. This time, we can see for 2025, Winsome Sears has not led in any poll. Now, the race does seem to be getting a little bit tighter as we get closer, but Abigail Spanberger certainly has a very sizable lead. The question is going to be, in my opinion, how much will that lead be? Right now, I think we're going to see Virginia go in the likely Democratic category. This is anywhere from 5 to 15% margin of victory. Right now, I'm tracking around an 8.5 to 9-point victory. I'm sort of on par with 2017. It should also be worth noting, the state of Virginia at the presidential level did just vote for Kamala Harris by 5.8%. Though it was very competitive, this was not a state that voted for Donald Trump. So in an election year that should be more energetic for the Democrats should be about to do very well in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So that is Virginia. Now we're going to move to the state of New Jersey. New Jersey is very interesting as well because New Jersey in the 2024 presidential race just saw its closest matchup where it voted for Kamala Harris over Donald Trump by 5.9%. That was a massive swing of roughly about 10 points from 2020 when Joe Biden won it by about 16%. So Republicans are feeling very optimistic about New Jersey and are trying to put it in play. Now, the Democratic candidate is U.S. Representative Mikey Sherrill from the 11th District in New Jersey. She won the Democratic primary. The Democratic governor, Phil Murphy, is term limited, cannot seek a third consecutive term, so it is an open race. But Mikey Sherrill did win the won the New Jersey Democratic primary. Did a video on that back when that happened. On the Republican side of things, Jack Ciattarelli, the nominee for governor in 2021 against Phil Murphy, won the Republican primary again in a pretty landslide victory for him in that primary and is now facing off in the general election. Now, this race is very interesting because of the two governor's races, though Virginia and New Jersey, it's long been thought that Virginia is the more competitive state of the two in the past 20 years or so. New Jersey is actually tracking to be the more competitive of the two governor's races in this cycle. Cook Political Report, Inside Elections, Sabro Crystal Ball, and Race to the White House all have this race listed as lean for the Democrat, for Mikey Sherrill. And this race thus far is very interesting. Right now, there hasn't been a polling average specifically done from any of the major polling websites yet. The most recent poll we have from Rutgers Eagleton showed Mikey Sherrill leading over Jack Ciattarelli 44 to 35%, with still 17% undecided. Now, there's also been some other polls, like from StimSite Research, which shows about a 6-point lead for Sherrill over Ciattarelli, but again, 9% undecided. Fairleigh Dixon University, 45-37, 15% undecided. So the argument that I see for this race right now is that it certainly looks like Mikey Sherrill has a lead in the New Jersey governor's race, and if the election were held today, I think it's more likely than not that Mikey Sherrill would probably win. But the polling in the 2025 New Jersey governor's race is not really all that different than the polling data we saw back in the 2021 governor's race, where ultimately it ended up being very hard to gauge. Because in the 2021 governor's race at this current point in time, by the end of August, even going up to early September, a Monmouth University poll showed Phil Murphy leading over Jack Ciattarelli by a lot, 52-36. But other than that, for Fabrizio and Associates, the Republican President Trump pollster, had about a 2-point race, 43-41. National Research Republican poll showed a 3-point race. Monmouth University had it 51-38, though. Only the Republican polls really showed a very close race up until really about October. Emerson College, very reputable polling source, had it about a 6-point race for Murphy versus Ciattarelli. Monmouth 50 to 39, Stockton 50 to 41. There wasn't really many polls that showed it an under 5-point race heading into the final few weeks, other than the Republican Trafalgar poll. Then what ended up happening ultimately in 2021 was a very surprisingly close election. Phil Murphy won at 51.2%, but Jack Ciattarelli got 48% of the vote. Ciattarelli making a lot of big gains in some key areas, like in Hunterdon County and Morris County, and nearly flipping Passaic County and making big gains in Bergen County as well, in the surrounding upper northeastern part of New Jersey. This was definitely very much of a surprise. So when we're tracking this race for 2025 in the state of New Jersey, I'm looking at these polls and I'm examining them very, very carefully. Because New Jersey certainly seems to be trending towards the Republicans and a little bit away from the Democrats based on the recent election years. This governor's race being under 5 points in 2021 and the presidential race being under 6 points in 2024, at some point we have to consider the fact that New Jersey is not the safe Democratic stronghold that it once was. But that doesn't also mean the Democrats are going to lose this race just because it's trending more in the Republican direction. Because this race is also, as I mentioned with Virginia, taking place in an off-year election where the Democratic Party should be favored. Now, New Jersey doesn't follow the same playbook really as Virginia, with the off-year party always winning, and this because New Jersey is more of a Democratic state historically than Virginia is. But this race is shaping up to be another very competitive race. When depending on the poll, it looks like Mikey Sherrill has a larger lead in a lot of these polls than even at this current point in time in the last race, but there's also a large amount of undecided vote out there. And it should be worth noting there hasn't been that many polls conducted in this New Jersey governor's race, and they're sort of kind of all over the place at this current point in time. It should be worth noting also that I believe StimSite Research is what the former Monmouth University pollster is now running after the Monmouth University pollster program kind of got shut down. That's his new polling firm. So I would take a good amount of stock in this poll that shows about a 6-point lead for Sherrill over Ciattarelli, but again, with 9% undecided. So I think this race is still very much wide open, and I do think Mikey Sherrill at this current point in time does have a narrow lead in this race, but again, I think a lot of those undecided votes in New Jersey may break again for Jack Ciattarelli like they did back in 2021. The question will be, will it be enough for Mikey Sherrill to end up winning this race, or for Jack Ciattarelli to narrowly pull off an upset? That remains to be seen. Now, as I mentioned with Virginia, I showed off some of the key counties to watch for the New Jersey governor election. Again, we saw Jack Ciattarelli do very well in northern New Jersey in these counties like Atlantic and Cumberland and Salem and Gloucester, and also in Monmouth and Ocean County. I'm expecting Ciattarelli to win these counties and to win them pretty handedly as well. The key counties I'm watching for, I'm watching Bergen County, I'm watching Passaic County, Hunterdon County, and Morris counties. Because Morris voted for Ciattarelli by 11 points, Hunterdon voted for Ciattarelli by about 18 points. But Passaic was about a 4-point Ciattarelli loss. Bergen was about a 6-point or so Ciattarelli loss. In the 2024 presidential election, President Trump won Passaic County by 2.9%. Trump won Morris County by 2.7% and lost Bergen by 3.4%. I think there's a very realistic scenario here that if Jack Ciattarelli is winning this governor's race, he may very well be winning Passaic County, winning Morris County by around the same margin of this governor's race, but he may also be flipping Bergen County as well. That could be the sign this election may be going towards Jack Ciattarelli. That would also be very significant, as I do believe Mikey Sherrill's congressional district does have parts of Essex County, Passaic County, and Bergen County in it, so that would be very significant if Ciattarelli is able to make those inroads in that area. But for right now, my current prediction for the New Jersey governor's race, Virginia, again, I have it as the likely Democratic. New Jersey, I currently have it as lean for the Democrats. This is in between a 5 and a 1% margin of victory. I think it stays under 5% right now. I think it's currently tracking to be around a 4.5-point victory for Democrat Mikey Sherrill. So it is slightly more Democratic than it was back in 2021. But I think this is a very close race that I'm definitely watching very closely, because this one could go either way when everything is said and done. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave a comment below. Tell me your thoughts, any questions or comments or suggestions you have. Please leave them down below. I always check all those out. Thank you so much for watching. Hope to see you in a future video.